Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Screen Peeking, a weekly podcast where Ziggy and I get together to talk about video games and everything video game related. Uh it's 2021, Zig. We've made it.
It is.
We got
Finally.
through 2020. So
The
happy about
longest
that.
decade ever.
Exactly. The year that started very slow, where I remember every week felt like 5 months or something, and then
Yeah.
ended super fast for me. It was so
Mhm,
weird
mhm.
how everything went by.
It's true,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so today's episode is going to be fully focused on our own, me and Zig being the screen peeking crew, our
Yeah, yeah.
our own game awards, basically looking at all the games that came out in 2020, and for me at least, and I'm sure for you too, Zig, like we're choosing our game of the year. We're also choosing um here our best story. We're having an award for best gameplay, most innovative or innovative, most. Anyways, best indie, and yeah, I already said game of the year. So, and we're also gonna give our top 5 games of the year too. So that being said, very excited about this. We've been kind of thinking
Me
about it. We've
too.
had a couple weeks because we recorded 2 episodes 2 weeks ago, right? So
hmm
at Christmas, had our holidays or whatever, and yeah, ready to get back into this. So to start it off, Ziggy, I really wanted to ask you, how are you liking your Xbox Series X? Because you
Yeah,
got it.
so yeah, Christmas Eve, man. It was supposed to come like a week from now or something, but Walmart ended up shipping it super early. I can no, it's fine. I was gonna say I could like unplug and bring it over here, but it's probably not worth it. Um, but yeah, no, it's nice. It's exactly what I was expecting and wanting, really, which is just like an Xbox One, but souped up, faster,
Mhm,
nicer. The quick resume is easily the standout thing for me. Like I had this crazy moment the other night where me and Owen were playing something, and at some point we were like, yeah, let's play some. Oh man, it's in my throat. Anyway, we're like, yeah, let's play some Forza. And so we did that, and usually Forza takes like a long time to load up, and not even just from loading screens. There's just a lot of like menus and shit to go through
right.
until you're finally like on the road driving. But because I'd been playing it like a few days earlier, and I like forgot that was even a thing, so I just opened the game up and like boom, I was on the road just instantly, and it was just crazy, like just that quickly being like in and playing the game, and that was awesome. Um, the it definitely I've noticed the thing of like not every game supporting quick resume, but the only game I play that doesn't support is Rocket League,
Hmm.
which I don't really care because it like it's a multiplayer game, so there wouldn't really be anything for it to save anyway.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense.
mhm. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of like pure multiplayer games like that didn't support it just because it doesn't necessarily make sense for them to.
Hmm.
Um, like say same with Overwatch or something. I wouldn't really expect it. Um, but yeah, I mean, other than that, like being able to play Yakuza 7, which I've been playing a lot of now that I have the new Xbox. And like that it'll be sometimes like over 30 minutes of just cutscenes, and then so if someone messages me like, hey, you want to play, and I'm like, yeah, like in a while. Like I
When this
gotta
is
sit through
done,
this, yeah, and then I gotta finally get to a save point and be able to
right?
stop. But being able to just be like, yeah, sure, and then boot out of there, not have to worry about it, no stress or anything, it feels so nice. um, yeah, that's definitely been the biggest takeaway. And also, I mean, menus are faster, games are faster.
Hmm.
I keep on like doing thing, I pull up my phone, open something up like while I'm waiting for something to load, and then it opens up before I even like can do anything on my phone. But yeah, it's been very pleasant, a very pleasant experience so far.
That's awesome. No, I'm glad you finally got it. I know you were looking forward to that, and yeah, being able to
Yeah,
play Yakuza on that instead of instead
yeah,
of your
yeah.
Xbox One or your Xbox One X.
It was just
Yeah.
a regular Xbox One.
Oh, it
Yeah,
was. Oh, I
yeah,
forgot.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
hmm
yeah, that's a nice jump.
It's a pretty big jump. Yeah, it's nice.
uh,
Um,
yeah. So, what have you been playing these last couple weeks?
Yeah, so I've definitely mostly been playing stuff on the Series X. Yakuza 7's the big one because I decided I want to stop before just like yeah, I've played a bit. I want to like wait till I have the nicer system and play it at something higher than like 25 FPS.
Mhm.
Um, and it runs so much nicer. It's like a smooth 60. Loading screens don't exist anymore. It's glorious. Um, and I feel like I can actually like enjoy the game a little bit more for what it was, because the thing that got me before is like like half a cutscene would go and then it would like switch scenes in the cutscene, and then I have to wait like 15 to 30 seconds for that next cutscene to
Right.
load. Like it was long, and it just like broke you out of the immersion so much. And then so having it playing it now, I'm enjoying the hell out of it. It's super fun. I know I had some gripes with the combat before, but now that I'm deeper into the game, a lot of those gripes are kind of going away a bit as like my
Hmm.
characters are leveling up. Like the weirdly difficult random encounters aren't so much of an issue anymore, which is good because that was a big issue of mine before. Um, but yeah, I'm loving it. The other thing I've been playing a lot of is Devil May Cry 5 Special Edition, which is just gorgeous. Like it is so pretty. Like the original the original Devil May Cry 5 already was just fucking beautiful. Like the RE engine is so gorgeous, but
Yeah.
having it now with like ray tracing and all those other effects, it looks just beautiful. And playing as Virgil in it is so much fun. Like for people who aren't really familiar, he is pretty much an anime villain, and playing as him makes you. I mean, it's a dumb thing, but like it makes you feel like an anime villain with like everything from like the like teleporting behind people and stabbing them in the back, or like you know
Right.
that move that's always in like samurai movies where it's like the silhouette of the samurai and they like skewer through their opponent, and then it's like with
Yeah,
the
then the
effects.
blood
Like he
sprays
has
out
that
behind.
move. Yeah, he has that move, and it just feels awesome to do. And yeah, he's a super different, like very tactical play style, but I love it. It's awesome.
Right.
Um, but yeah, those have been the major two. What about you?
Yeah, I was playing Cyberpunk a bunch, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, I beat it like we talked about last couple episodes. I got to level 50 now, and I got like 50 max street cred. Did a whole bunch of activities, side missions and stuff, and then I just kind of was like, I'm done. I'm done with the game. Like I don't really have a reason. Like it's just the same thing over and over. Um, Clearing checkpoints, you know, takes 5 seconds, and side missions are just a lot of sitting there listening to people talk, and most of them aren't much more than like a 10 minute. Like there's nothing to be invested in. So
Mm-hmm.
unless you're doing like, I don't know, trying to romance someone or whatever, like there isn't really
Mm-hmm.
anything to hold on to, I find. So I'm I'm sure I'll play it again in the future, but right now with the current content, if nothing got added, which there's going to be stuff added, right? But if
Yeah,
nothing got
yeah.
added, I would not pick it up again. And what I was talking to my brother, and we can't really put into words how we feel, but we are definitely feeling, we're both feeling a little bit down on the game. And I say that while I had a blast with it when I was playing
Mm-hmm.
for the first like 40 hours or so. I think I
Mm-hmm.
put on Steam, it says like 96 hours or something in the
Oh,
game.
jeez.
And so I've gotten my money's worth. No
Totally,
problem.
yeah.
And for my satisfaction, I'm very happy. Like I'm happy with the purchase, but I left the game going, bummer. Like for example, Katana Zero that you had me play.
Mm-hmm.
That game, when I finished it, I was like, man, I can't wait to play that again in the future. When I'm just on a random day where I'm like, you know what, I want to play
Mm-hmm.
that. I know I'm gonna have fun going back and playing it. Cyberpunk, I don't have that feeling. I'm like, I'm kind of just done with you for like, I don't know when, if I ever want to go back. Like, I just
Mm-hmm.
don't see, like, I can't see how it can be fun again. Whereas like Katana Zero had that like really fun gameplay loop that I really enjoyed, fun combat and fun like just trying to beat my time or trying to do things more perfect than I did before. So I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
that kind of, that's how I'm feeling on that. And so then I put a little like little up to a vote on on my Instagram to see if I should play Dead Space 2 or Bloodborne next, and people voted Blood or Dead Space 2. So I've
Mm-hmm.
been playing that on stream. Like I think I'm on chapter 8 or 9 right now out of
Oh,
13.
nice.
So not too bad. And then on my own time, just like little bits here and there in the morning, since I get up early and I don't really want to be streaming live when I'm and it's 4 in the morning. I I've been playing some BioShock 2, just trying to get my
Oh,
platinum.
awesome.
I only have to beat it on. I've done it before on other like on Xbox or whatever, but like I don't have the platinum trophy for like on PlayStation, and I have that
Mhm.
BioShock collection. I was like, hey, what do I need on that? And I looked. I've gotten everything other than beat it on hard. So clearly, I played it on easy with the revive chambers turned off, and then did all the collectibles, did all the stuff, and now I just have to go through the game again on hard. So it's not bad. I've done it before, and so I've just been doing that on on this side. So
That's awesome.
yeah, that's been my.
So, in terms of Cyberpunk, would you say you still agree with the review from before, or has your overall opinion changed?
I'm trying to remember what my review was before. I remember there's a lot of talking, a lot of positive, a lot of negative.
Mhm.
Um,
I think the general consensus we had is like it's flawed, but like we're still having a blast with it.
yeah, like I guess what I'll say is I still stand by the fact that I was having a lot of fun when I was having a lot of fun, and then once you beat
Mhm.
the game and you get to max level, I mean, it's a single player game. It has an end. You know,
Mhm.
they had a
Mhm.
story, like that's fine. I don't have a there isn't a gameplay loop that makes me want to go back and play it once you've cleared content, I guess is all I'm saying. So I'm not like trying to knock it down anymore. It's just,
Okay.
you know, I don't have a desire to go back and go and do the side little few side missions I have left. Like I was trying to clear every little thing on the map, and then I started getting tired
Mhm.
of it
Mhm.
because all those that part I would say is pretty pathetic. I don't know
Yeah,
if I had
yeah,
an opinion
and
on it
I think
before, but
that's pretty fair. Like you said, it's a single player game. It has an end. I think like Metal Gear Solid 5, I played a shit ton of just like doing stupid like meaningless activities just cuz
mhm.
like the core gameplay loop is so fun, but yeah, I mean not every game needs to be that. Not every game needs to keep you for not every single player game needs to keep you for like 200 hours. Which I think is maybe what some people are expecting from Cyberpunk, but I don't think that makes it bad. I'd agree
Yeah,
with you.
actually, I'm just right now just thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? I actually had the same feeling when I finished Last of Us Part Two and God of
Mhm.
War, two great games that I like actually a lot more than Cyberpunk. Obviously, like
Hmm.
I respect the hell out of Last of Us Part Two, and so the difference with that and Cyberpunk is I same feeling in terms of I don't really have a reason to go back and play this. I've beaten the game. I've done all the stuff that I
Mhm.
want to do. I've kind of collected all this stuff. Why would I go back and play it? Like unless I just want to relive the story, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the difference for me is the quality of the game and the actual gameplay and what you got out of it. Like Last of Us Part Two and God of War did things in their each both games that were like so impactful for me that I was constantly going like whoa whoa whoa
Yeah.
and having those feelings and making me want to like keep playing and enjoying it just had such an impact when I finished the game. I'm like wow, that was amazing. And Cyberpunk I
Mhm.
was more like I guess I'll go do some more stuff, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was kind of the difference for me.
Yeah. I mean, totally. Like when I played Final Fantasy VII this year, which is like on my top five of the year.
Hmm.
There's the same thing where like I rolled credits as like that was fucking awesome, and then I immediately uninstalled it. Like there's just like I wasn't gonna go and do all the side quests. I wasn't gonna do all that. I was like awesome, I'm done. Like
Yeah.
that was a great experience, but yeah, I don't necessarily feel the need to come back. Um, we should probably move on though, because we got a lot to talk about in terms of awards.
Yes. Yes. Yes, we should. So let's go with the game of the year last, okay? Let's do that
Mhm.
last and just get started with our choice, or well, let's get started with your choice for best story this year,
Okay. So we
2020.
should probably first explain like our system of how we're deciding this. Um, so basically,
Yeah.
what we're going to do is Nick and I have both chosen our champion that we're going to bring forth, and then with that champion, we're gonna have a death battle over it. So Nick and I are just gonna debate over and try to convince the other person which we think should be the winner of this category. So first category is it's gonna be best story of the year. My nomination, my champion is The Last of Us Two. Um, and yours is
Oh, I can't wait to debate this one. It's also The Last of Us Part 2.
yeah. No surprises here.
Yeah.
Um,
That
I mean,
game.
yeah. Let's talk about it.
Mhm. That game was constantly uh like I said before, making me go, "Wow." But the
Mhm.
first time I saw like the close up, the first scenes with Joel and his guitar, and like the detail in his face and his emotion, and just like the interaction between him and Ellie, and they're going back and forth, and he sings that song to her, right, with the guitar, and it was just like such an emotional thing, and it was like pretty close to the right at the beginning of the game, and I was like, wow, like that. And so just one of many wows. And the storytelling and the pacing I found for a story was really good, but I know a lot of people felt it was long. That's fair. I understand. I really enjoyed it. What do you think of the story?
Yeah, I mean, it's my favorite story of the year for sure. And like I think it just did things that a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people who said that we haven't seen in games. I would disagree. I think it just does a lot of stuff that we don't often see in games, and especially not in a game of this budget. Like
Mm.
the fact that this game got made is kind of amazing to me, given that they took one of the most beloved characters in games of last generation and then made you hate him, made him a villain, like, and made you, or maybe not even necessarily hate him or a villain, but made you go,
Yeah, I
oh,
don't
this
know.
guy kind of sucks. Like, at the end, I was like, yeah, like, I kind of hated Ellie at moments. I kind of hated Joel at
Mm.
moments. At the end, it kind of, like, it fixed some of that, but it was a very real thing of, like, it's not often that you see stories like that in games. Like, it was, it was a story that would have won awards as a movie, and I think that's kind of rare in video games. Like, for the most part, I would say video game storytelling isn't on par with other mediums, and the fact that we had both this and, from what I hear, Kentucky Route Zero was a similar thing in that it is the quality of like a great American novel. Um, but it's a video game, and I would say the same thing about The Last of Us Part 2. Like, it is just phenomenal. And do you want to go into spoilers of it? Because I
Yeah,
would like to, if we're talking about
yeah,
stories now.
yeah. Like,
Okay.
hey,
So
it's the end of the year.
spoilers for the next while. Yeah. If you haven't played it or you don't want to be spoiled, skip ahead. Um, but like the having the game, I knew Joel died in the game, and I knew, like, I had a lot of that stuff spoiled for me going in, but it was a sort of thing where even knowing that all that happens, it didn't affect the impact at all. Like, I wouldn't say
Hmm.
that the actual experience was ruined or spoiled. It was like I knew Joel died, but he died way sooner than I was expecting. And I also thought Ellie died for some reason. I don't know why. but like I think someone had told me that, and that ended up not being true at all. Like some of the spoilers I heard were just plain false. But yeah, having that, like, and that moment where you switch over to Abby, that I think the game lost a lot of people, is what I think it achieves better than anything. Like, if that scene didn't work for you, I think that is totally fair, because, like, forcing you to love a character that you hated so strongly at the beginning, is hard. But I think the reason why I love this game is that it pulled it off. Like, it made me genuinely care about Abby and root for Abby. Like, I think we've talked before on here about playing the game and, like, allowing ourselves to die because we just so strongly didn't want to do what the game was asking us to do. Like that final fight with
Hmm.
Abby in the water,
Yeah,
where
very,
it's
very.
asking you to like push her underwater and drown her, and I'm like, I don't want to. Like, and I just let myself die at that moment out of just like, I don't want to do this. Like, I so strongly care about Abby and Ellie and
When
Lev, and like,
when
I
I was
just don't
doing that
want
part,
to.
Taylor was on the couch beside me. She's like, "Yeah, kill her, kill her. I hate Ellie now." It was so funny.
Yeah,
I was
no,
like, I don't want
it's
to.
just, it's so powerful. And yeah, I mean, like, I definitely think I rolled my eyes a bit when it first, like, when there's that final confrontation, like Abby and Ellie are seeing each other, and then it's just like, boom, flashback. I was a bit like, oh, fuck off. Like, I wanted to see that. And then, but I think that, like, that tension and that, like, frustration really, really quickly melts away into, like, because at first it's the same thing. I think everybody
That
knew what
part,
they were doing the moment it cut away, where it's like, okay, they're gonna try to make me like Abby now, yeah, yeah. But then, like, the fact that they actually did pull it off, and I did end up adoring Abby, is just so impressive to me.
that part where they switch, where she's pointing the gun and they
Mm.
switch off, and then you're playing as Abby, was such a shock for me when I, and it was so important, I think, that they did it at that point, because that really I know a lot of people didn't like having to switch over and start. It almost feel like starting over, right? And you're playing as
Mhm.
as Abby now. It made a character you might not want to play as or whatever, and you're playing it for quite a while too. But like
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
fact that it ended at that point made me really want to keep going to find out what happens, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Me
and I
too.
think that
I think
was
that helps
important
the
to help push
pacing.
people to play as this character and start to learn this character. And
Mhm.
um beyond the game and the characters, like I feel like the story and showing the different sides of things, it's just so important in especially today, with the way people are so opinionated right now and so
Mhm.
very strongly opinionated on social media especially, and
Mhm.
and the fact that no one's right, no one's wrong, it's just a lot of perspectives, you know. And
Mhm.
you can't just hate someone because they don't think the way you do. And I think that
Mhm.
I took a lot of that away from the game personally. Was
Mhm.
yeah, like you can just see one small part of somebody's life and think that they're awful all their life because of that, right? And you don't know
Mhm.
how they got to that point or what caused them to get to that point or what their
Mhm.
view was. Like Abby having to see her father get shot by Joel and
Mhm.
having to like deal with that and going through her whole life and relationships, and
Mhm.
then watching her friends get killed by by Ellie and
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
like that, and you're like, I just want to kill this bitch, right? And that's what she's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's what Abby's thinking, right? And then you're like, all
Mhm.
you get to see is Joel getting his face beaten, right? Before, and her just getting revenge for her father. And I just think like, man, like there's way too much of people just jumping to conclusions these days, and I felt like that was very very real. I think that happened a lot with a lot of people. A lot of people jumping to conclusions as soon as they see Joel getting killed. They're like, or even
Mhm.
when they found out through spoilers, right? There's a lot of people just jumping
Mhm.
to conclusion. This game's terrible. This thing, all this stuff, and it's like for me, that was almost like a holding up a mirror. Look at this. Look at
It
yourself.
was
What's
seriously.
going
Yeah.
on?
I agree.
So like
Yeah.
neither Ellie nor Abby were good people in this game. Like,
No. Yeah.
and it's purely just who do you like more? That who cares? This is a story and you experienced it. You were there for the ride. You don't get to choose. So
Yeah.
that was interesting.
And I think that moment too, like that confrontation, I think adds so much to the pacing and like the tension in Abby's story because when she busts in, like she is a demon in that moment. Like
Mm.
just the sheer rage and anger on her face and like it's the sort of thing where you knew you hated her, but when she busts in, you're like, oh my god, like there's more here that I don't understand. Like she's
Mhm.
acting way stronger than I would expect her to in this situation.
Yeah.
Like this is my revenge. Why is she acting this way? You know.
Yeah.
And then but then having that get back and like you were saying, yeah, it pushed me to keep going. I wanted to see how that played out, and it pushed me to keep going through Abby's story. Where if it didn't end on that scene, I don't know, I would have like I probably would have kept going, but I wouldn't have that same level of motivation. Um,
Yeah. I'm sure that would
but
have
yeah,
lost some people for sure.
yeah, definitely. And I think I have similar thoughts on the pacing of this game that I do something like Near Automata, in that I do think the pacing is not the best, but I think that that's kind of a necessary evil. Like I think because some parts drag and because it forces you to go and play the entire like game again pretty much, like or not the entire game but like it forces you to go back to the beginning playing with Abby and play all those 3 days again. um,
Hmm.
I think yes, that's slow and kind of boring at times, but without it, that story would really suffer. I think, and I feel the same way about Nier, where it forces you to legitimately play the entire game again, and not in the sense of this, where oh you just have to play through these events again. It's like no, you're playing the whole ass game again. But and it gets boring, but I feel the same way where like that story is so much more impactful and so much more like powerful because it forces you to do that, and because of that I can't necessarily fault the game for that. I think it's just a decision that they really ran with, and I can kind of respect that personally. But yeah, I mean, I said it at the beginning, I'll say it again. I think what The Last of Us Part 2 is from a writing standpoint is just so impressive on from a AAA standpoint. It's just really not something you see that often, and I think it's really special because of that.
I agree. So yeah, if you couldn't tell, we really like the story of this game, and we are, about 25 minutes into this, and only on the first award. So let's go on to best gameplay. Ziggy, what was your choice for best gameplay this year?
Man, this is gonna be a surprise again to absolutely nobody. The game I've been raving about since the moment I played the demo, Ultra Kill. This
Hmm.
game just like it's impressive in the sense that one person made it, but I think beyond being impressive of the scope it is for how it was developed, I think it is genuinely one of the best shooters ever made. Like I think it like Doom Eternal, like I've said before, was my favorite shooter, and I think Ultra Kill goes past it in its like the creativity of its mechanics. Like in this game, you can shoot a shotgun and then parry your own shells to make those shells like explode on impact. Like the level of like tech and skill and like mastery that this game allows you is just unlike anything else I've played. Like that's very common in like boomer shooters, like that sort of style of game. Um, and I think it just does it better than anything else I've played. Like I've talked on like I've talked about this game so much on the show. I almost don't want to go too long, but like every weapon just has so much detail in terms of how you can use it. Like everything is so multi-purpose. Every single weapon is like a Swiss Army knife, and
Like a
that
lot
like
of
you can use
depth.
it for so many different things. Yeah, and there's so many weapons, and the best thing about it, this game isn't even done. Like this is Act One that is out. There's still so much to go. More weapons, more enemies. The way that this game is developed, I think, is awesome. Like this developer has been putting out every time he's working on a new level or a new weapon. It's always like, here's more videos out to the public to see what people think. And because of that, there's so much just perfection in this game because every time he implements something new, you get that all that audience feedback of like, oh, I don't know about this, or you should try doing this, and then he actually implements it.
Hmm.
Or things like what I was talking about with shotgun teching, where you can like parry your own shots. That was originally a glitch that people were like, oh, this is fucking awesome. Like this adds so much depth and skill, and so like he kept it and improved upon it. And I think because of that, like it just absolutely nails what makes a retro fast paced shooter fun, and does it better than something like Doom does. And Doom is a, $1 million project. It's out like hundreds of people working on this thing.
Yeah.
And I think it's just so insanely impressive and incredible what this game accomplishes. What about you?
Well, my game is not that one. My game is I had to choose. So actually, before I even say it, all of my choices are games I've played. I wanted to obviously make sure that that was a thing, because, and then I also for this one, for best gameplay, I would have chosen Demon Souls remake, but I didn't want to because it was a remake, and I know that
Mm.
I know it's remake, I know it's all that, but the core gameplay is actually the same as the original, so I didn't want to do that. But now that I've given it more thought, actually, I don't think I would have chosen Demon Souls. I would have chosen Ori and the Will of the Wisps. That's my number one choice for
Mm.
this year, or for 2020, and that's because that game, it feels so good to play it. Have you played it? I can't remember if I asked you.
I played it, I didn't finish it.
So like all those different abilities, like having the leaf for gliding, going from gliding to a little like the dodge where you can kind of launch yourself left or right, being able to launch yourself off projectiles to kind of stay in the air, just all the different things you can do, just they flow so well together. Being able to use a big hammer or a quick slicing sword, and the combat is actually really good for for a game like that, for like a Metroidvania kind of slasher is what I would call it. I don't know. But like you have your bow, you have your sword, you have your hammer, you can equip different things, you have like a burst move, you can have all kinds of different abilities, and the way that you can chain them all together and get around the environment really quick and almost like, snappy movements, I feel is so satisfying to play. And even some bosses you could stay off the ground just by kind of launching off of the minions that they shoot out or their projectiles, and then being able to, you could like basically stay in the air and constantly be attacking a boss. And I just think things like that don't work by accident. Like they people purposefully made all this stuff and then made it all work together so well. And kind of like what you were saying with Ultra Kill, right? Like just being able to use all your abilities in any combination and be able to get the result you want is really not something you see everywhere. You'll see a lot of tools, and you have to choose one or the other, or you can't really make both of them work well together. Um, like I've even used the sword and the hammer in Ori, which normally you would choose one or the other. You go, well, do I want a slow swinging, big, heavy, you know, hammer, or do you want a fast slicing sword? You can like using both is actually worth it because some enemies are fast, some are slow, right? And do you want to use one of your
Mhm.
slots for that? So, I don't know. I you actually kind of like I'm not really one to argue my point on really any of these. I found there's just a if what you're saying is true, I don't even think you need to say much more. I'd be fine with choosing Ultra Kill. I want to give it a try. So I just can't say I because I haven't played it. But I don't know. Ori's really good. Ultra Kill sounds like it might be better gameplay though. Ori doesn't do a ton of new stuff. It just works really well. Ultra Kill sounds like it's actually doing some new stuff. Is what it sounds like to me, at least with
It's
the
yeah.
weapons.
So a lot. It's funny. A lot of what you said about Ori is like, yeah, it's exactly what I love about Ultra Kill. It's like it's mastery and like everything works together in this really cool like synergy. Um, and I actually think Ultra Kill is a lot of what it does is like fun spins on old ideas, like it's a chain gun but now it's a nail gun and it can shoot a magnet and stuff like that. Like it's kind of established shooter tropes but in really new and interesting ways. And I think Ori and Ultra Kill I feel insane saying this but are very similar in reasons why we like them. Even though they're completely different gameplay styles. But yeah, I mean, I will argue for Ultra Kill. Having played both, Ori is also not necessarily as much my kind of game, but I think I have such a hard time arguing against Ori though because what it does is really incredible. Like, I wish I wish they could both win. Um,
Well, I like going for the small guy too. Like I
all
mean, both
right.
of them are
Mm-hmm.
relatively small, but one is a lot smaller of a
Mm-hmm.
team behind a game. And
Mm-hmm.
I yeah, Ultra Kill isn't my type of game. Like Doom isn't my type of game. But
Mm-hmm.
um, I know the next category or the next award is most innovative, but I I think when it comes to gameplay, innovating and making weapons feel cool and new that you might have originally thought, oh, it's just a shotgun or it's just whatever you were saying, chain gun or whatever. Like I would love to be able to play it and go, oh, I think I know what this is going to do, and holy cow, it does something totally different. That's a
Mm-hmm.
cool thing. And Ori, I find, is a lot of what you expect, but it's just done so well. And so I'd still say
Mm-hmm.
it's really good gameplay, but it sounds like I personally would rather give my award to someone who's doing something totally new or changing how I view things. So
Well, can't argue that. Also, one last piece to say on Ultra Kill. The pistol stays relevant throughout the entire game, and I think that is an absolute achievement in shooter design because that
is
is
that your first
so
weapon?
rare. Yeah, like
Oh,
the
okay.
the starter pistol you get at the beginning of the game is useful throughout the entire thing,
It's
and I
like
think
the
like
pistol you get at
it's
the end of the game. It's the best, and you can use it all like through the rest of the game.
but it's so rare that
Yeah,
you play shooters, and that's the case. So I think it deserves a nod for that, with the
nice.
exception of Dead Space. That's another one. But yeah, I will happily give it to Ultra Kill if you're cool with that.
All right. Well, next category. Uh, congrats, Ultra Kill. Yay. Next category is most innovative game of 2020. Ziggy, what do you choose?
Man, another one that's gonna be of absolutely no
And not why,
surprise.
just what did you choose? We'll debate about
Half
it
Life
after.
Alex.
Okay, well, there's no debate there. That one I didn't play, but I've watched enough, and I know I just said I played all these games. I totally missed that one, but that one, like, I couldn't argue for any other one. When I was thinking it over in my head, I was like, you know what? I've played VR, and I've played games that don't look like they're as good as this, and so I can very well imagine what it would be like to be able to do all the things that you see you doing in Half-Life Alyx. I've watched over an hour of gameplay, and I feel like I've that's enough to be able to say. Um, this is very innovative. It doesn't I don't know. I don't know what I was gonna say. It's just it was very obvious to me.
And I think the thing about Half-Life Alyx that makes me say this is it does the same thing that Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2 did, where when you look at shooters, you can easily see which games came out before Half-Life and after Half-Life. Like, it's this really clear distinction of the influence of that game and what it did. And same with Half-Life 2. Like, you look at games that came out pre 2004 and post 2004, and you can totally see, like, the differences in design philosophy and like storytelling and all those things. And I think Half-Life Alyx is a really similar thing where when I play VR games that like came out before this, they all feel old. Like it made me dislike games that I love by playing this game just because it does it so insanely well. Like playing something like Robo Recall, which came out kind of earlier in the VR cycle, it just feels janky now compared to how Half-Life handles it, you know?
Mm.
And I loved that game when it came out. I loved that game even like well after it came out. I think it aged better than a lot of other VR games that released at the time. But like Half-Life Alyx just nails things that so many other games failed on. And I think it's definitely worth something for that. Um, but yeah, glad we don't have to argue that one. That's another easy one.
Alright, well,
And I
yeah.
will talk more about that game later. Little sneak peek.
Oh boy, way to just blow your load. No. Best indie game is the next category for us.
Oh, you missed it. Best
What?
OST is the next one.
What?
Yeah.
I don't have that.
Oh,
When
does
I
that not show up on your
you might have
doc?
added that
Really?
after. I'm looking at my copy of your thing.
Oh no.
I might have copied it over
Um.
before you added that one. Well, that's okay. I
Anyway.
have an answer. I have an answer. So go ahead.
Okay.
Give me yours.
So, my nomination for best OST is going to be Final Fantasy VII Remake. As someone who has, or sorry, actually, you go, and then I'll say my argument.
Oh no, I need a second. Remember, I didn't know this was a
Okay,
category.
okay, okay. Okay. So as someone who never played the original and doesn't have that level of nostalgia, like I'm coming in totally clean, and all these tracks are just so incredible. Like a lot of them feel like they have the same character from the PS1 era that I feel like we don't necessarily see as much in the AAA space these days, but it feels new and unique and like the and so diverse is what gets me too. Like so many tracks in this game sound like they're just from different games, and I think that's totally worth something. Like listening to the music in Wall Market versus the music like near the end of the game, it's totally different. Like one is this cool like kind of like I don't know, like urban jungle type thing. You know, you're in the slums in like the red light district, you know, doing stuff, talking to like these crime lords, and it's awesome. And then in another place, it's like God, there's this one, these like sewers you have to go through to get somewhere. It's just kind of a typical like combat section. Um, and I was playing with Tesla in the room, and the battle theme, like I got into combat, and it was just this like just kick ass like techno beat started playing with like this fucking guitar riff underneath it, and I was just like, oh my God, like out loud exclaimed from it, because it was just like blew me out of the water with that track. Like, and that happens so often when something
Hmm.
goes on and I start like laughing because it's just so awesome and so cool. And it's just it's so good. And I definitely had a hard time picking between this and like Doom Eternal and even The Last of Us, just because they're all so insanely different. But I think what this does for me over those is it just feels so fresh. And even though it is a lot of these songs are just remixes of the original songs, like they still feel fresh. And maybe that's because I haven't played the original and because they're kind of 90s games or
Hmm.
90s songs in like a 2000s or in a 2020 world. Um, but it just sounds like nothing else I heard this year, and I like it a lot because of that.
Right.
What about you?
So I have my list of all the games I've played this year, and I was looking through them. I was trying to remember, and honestly, like I have to keep coming back to Ori. Like I'm putting that
Mm-hmm.
one back on there. It and this one I will argue for because first of all, obviously we have different tastes in different parts of
Mm-hmm.
different music, right? That's fine. But I would argue it's much harder for a game to evoke emotion, like of a more somber and like or like a caring kind of emotion out of a person than it is to get people to go, oh yeah, I'm into this fight, you know, because I find that
Mhm.
happens in a lot of games for me where I'm just like, yeah, I'm feeling this, I'm ready to kick ass or whatever. I feel like that happens in just about every game I play. But to be able to make me slow down and go, wait, and to have a game that doesn't have any like, it has some text, but most of the storytelling is very just music and you're watching characters do their thing. And for me, I actually got choked up a couple times playing this game, and the music really brought that out in me. Because if it was silent, I 100% went to. And so,
Yeah, yeah.
and for the sense of wonder when you're entering in different areas, right? You have your, I don't remember the name, but there's like the oasis kind of more. There's like crystal clear water and shells and beachy kind of themed area, and it's all very like you know people singing in the background, but it's very quiet and nice. And I'm just like, oh, this is a nice little like tropical paradise, and
Mhm.
you're just swimming along. And then you go down to the depths and the dark areas down below where there's actually, I think I remember this name. I think it's called Mulwood Depths, if I remember right. And there's all the bugs in the foreground and the background with their little limbs twitching and they're dead, and it's where all the spiders
Yeah.
were, and it's all gross, and the music just changes, and it's very like quiet, and the deep tones that just kind of make you go like, ooh, I shouldn't be here, and kind of makes you feel that way. And then you get back to a different area and you're happy again. And I feel like just that the
Yeah.
ups and downs in that game, that it can really make you feel like you're in the wrong place or you're in the right place, or you should feel sad or you should feel happy. And I just kind of got all those different feelings because of the music in that game, and not just because of what I saw on the screen. And so that's a big part of my argument.
Yeah, I would concede to that. I think, I yeah, I love what you're saying. Like, I think so much of Ori's storytelling is in the music itself.
Mm.
From what I played of it, the story sections were pretty much no dialogue. Is a lot of just character animation and music, and that was the entirety of the story. And there's a lot like done in the animation, but I think yeah, so much of the emotion in the game is portrayed through almost exclusively its music, and that's really 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 fucking impressive.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I think you've convinced me. Yeah, I think Ori
Yes.
definitely deserves best soundtrack.
Awesome. Now, what do you have for the next category? Because
So my best indie. Yeah.
yeah, okay, it's best indie. Yeah, so
Okay.
I guess I'll go first on this one. Um,
Okay.
I chose Mortal Shell as my
Mm.
pick for best indie because thinking back to all the indie games I've played this year, and first of all, I wrote down a ton of games that I played this year, or all the games that I could remember that I played, and
Mhm.
um, out of just the ones that came out this year, I've only played 11. And I was
Oh
like,
wow.
holy cow, I played like less than one a month of like actually games
Yeah.
that, and I remember that thinking back, I was like, yeah, I think from January until I played, it was either Paper Mario Origami King or it was The Last of Us Part 2, whichever one came out first. Actually, they might have come out on the same day. Actually, I think they might have. But anyways, I just whatever one, I think it was The Last of Us Part 2. I borrowed a friend's PS4 and I played that. And then I think it was the next
Mhm.
month actually that Paper Mario came out on. I think it came out on the same day as Ghost of Tsushima. That's what it was. And then I played that one. But like those were like, so basically June was the first like 2020 game if you don't count me just like touching the Switch once or twice to play Animal Crossing for Taylor. Like that
Mhm.
was it. And yeah, I was just kind of looking at this going, wow, for me this is why I feel so down on 2020 for like of amount of games. But then I realized a lot of the games I
Mhm.
played this year have been all like from last year or before. I've been having a blast playing a ton of like older games. So it's kind of tough for me to choose with a lot of these categories because a lot of what I've enjoyed has been older games, but
Mhm.
regardless, just went on a rant there for a sec. I chose Mortal Shell for for best indie because it was either that or Carrion, I think, in terms of like games that came out this year, and maybe a couple others, but nothing that really stood out. And so Mortal
Mhm.
Shell, I'm a huge Souls fan. I love Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, all that stuff. And uh these developers did such a crazy good job with this game in terms of creating a world and like a lore and a game that's very similar but still holds its own and does its own thing with the hardening feature. So you can
Mhm.
get hard in the game by like
Yo.
basically turning to rock and or turning to stone, right? And you can do it, and if an enemy hits you, they kind of get staggered for a moment, so then you pop out of that and you hit them, and you have a parry as well, and you have a lot of similar tools, but they use them in different ways from Dark Souls. And for me, I loved that. I have had a blast with it. I haven't beaten it though. I'd like to go back and finish the game, but I've had a ton of fun playing it, and just the world that they created, the environment looks incredible. Character designs, enemy designs are all so good. Like their characters are nice. Like they look like they could have been in a Dark Souls game, or even like their quality looks amazing. And then they didn't have mocap, right? So they had to keyframe animate everything, and some of those animations are actually very impressive. I find I'm very happy with them. So um, I don't know. I really like this game as my number one for best indie. What's yours?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's funny. Both of us picked like indie takes on established genres because
Oh,
my favorite indie game this year is Ultra Kill, um, and yeah, my arguments would be really similar to yours. Like it's an indie team, like it's really small and it just holds its own against id and against
mhm.
like these huge industry giants. Um, and yeah, like you said, it takes those formulas and it gives its own spin. It adds enough to make itself feel unique and different, while at the same time, like it doesn't feel like it is a budget Doom, but it doesn't feel like a budget Doom. It feels like its own game, you know. And again, it's the sort of thing I have a hard time arguing against your pick because our picks are so similar. I think in why they're great. Um, but I accept that I would say in your game, can you make an angel so mad he says fuck? That's my only that would be my argument against it because that's a pretty cool moment. That was
That
like the standout argument or like that was the standout
uh
moment of that game.
I can't, but my counter argument is, can you get hard, right? Like
Oh shit, you can't
you
get a
can't
boner
get
in Ultra
hard,
Kill.
and I
Yeah.
mean, if you can't get hard, then what's the point? Just kidding.
Really, yeah. No,
I
yeah. God, it's hard for this one.
no,
Almost as
mine's
hard as the
hard.
character in Mortal Shell.
Yeah,
Yeah. um
this could go on.
yeah, I think actually I want to say real quick the
Hmm.
moment that made me absolutely fall in love with Ultra Kill because it is the final boss of Act 1 where it's been leading up. You hear rumors of the story is basically Dante's Inferno, but with this really cool sort of futuristic twist to it. Um, and in terms of setting, at least, like you're going down down the nine circles of hell, um, and things. It's the different things. So in the final one, it's in this chapter at least, it's gluttony and there's all these weird like mouths
Hmm.
and stuff, and you hear like this booming voice talking to you throughout, and it's Gabriel, like the archangel. And it's this really interesting spin on it where you end up fighting him. He's like, "Go back, you're not wanted here. Like you don't know what you're doing." And then you end up fighting him like an archangel, like a messenger of God, and you just
Yeah,
has this feeling of like, I am so
out of
like
my league or
deep in
something.
this shit here. Yeah,
Yeah.
like this is insane. Like I am genuinely fiddling with like the divine right now,
Hmm.
and it just feels batshit. And then eventually, yeah, you start fighting him, and he gets more and more pissed at you. To eventually you defeat him, he's like, "You insignificant fuck," and he just gets so pissed and like freaks out, and he has like
You're
this big cutscene about he's like shamed and goes into like heaven, and it's like this crazy like it's awesome. I could talk about it forever and like the music with it. And
no
at that
kidding.
moment I
And
was like, this is so kick ass.
while I just have to say, you froze right when you were saying fuck, and it was really funny. um, so you got to watch that back. It was hilarious. Your passion for that game, your hard on for this game is way harder than my character in Mortal Shell. So let's just say Ultra Kill as our best indie because
I'll happily
yeah,
take
you're
that. Yeah.
definitely more passionate about it than I am about Mortal Shell. While I do respect it, I'd still would rather read Dark Souls, and it sounds like you would almost maybe prefer Ultra Kill over Doom.
It is so tight. When we get to it, my top five, I had to choose putting one over the other. And my top five, for the record, are all like the margin of difference between them is like a millimeter. And choosing whether I like Doom Eternal or Ultra Kill more is so hard
Okay, well let's
because
get right into that. Okay, so we're gonna say
let's get
Ultra
into it.
Kill
Game of the
was
year.
best indie. What's your top
Yeah.
five of the year? And
Okay,
end on your
so
game of the year.
my list is number 5 is Doom Eternal, number 4 is Final Fantasy 7, number 3 is Ultra Kill,
Oh,
number 2 is The Last of Us 2, and number 1 is Half-Life Alyx. Um,
oh wow.
and so yeah, so Doom Eternal is actually ranked 2 places below Ultra Kill, and part of that is because Final Fantasy 7 I like for totally different reasons than both of them, and I personally thought it just stood out to me more than Doom Eternal did. Um, but yeah, no, Ultra Kill and Doom Eternal, they just do different things. Like, I think the achievement of Doom Eternal is its pacing, and that
Hmm.
a lot of people weren't a big fan of the puzzles and the platforming in that game, but I think it added so much in terms of like the combat in these types of games is legitimately exhausting when you play it for more than a couple hours at a time. And that's why like playing Ultra Kill on like its hardest difficulty right now, I'll play it for like an hour and be like, "Whoa, I'm good for right now," because
Hmm.
it's like it's legitimately exhausting. And so what Doom Eternal does so well is it tires you out and then goes, "All right, let's take a breath," and then lets you platform for a bit, lets you go find some secrets and just like chill out and take a breather for a moment, and then just jump right back into the thick of it. And I think it handles that pacing so well.
Right.
But in terms of like core moment to moment gunplay, I think Ultra Kill is better, which is more important to me personally, so I ranked it higher. Um, but yeah, I mean, Half Life Alyx, all that's my champion, my nomination. I think I've talked about all the other games on this list, so you give me your list, and then let's freaking put on our like brass knuckles and duke it out.
Alrighty. So my number five is Cyberpunk. I did not like it as much as I think it should. I don't put it as high as I think I was originally going to. Um, my number four that is going to be Wasteland 3.
Mm.
My number three is going to be Ori, the Will of Wisps. My number two is going to be Demon Souls Remake. And my number one is going to be The Last of Us Part 2.
Awesome. Yeah, I to be honest, if we make The Last of Us 2 our game of the year, I would not be upset at all. I mostly put Half Life Alyx at the top of my list because it is at the top of my list, and also because I want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've been going to spoilers. I'm gonna go into
Yep.
spoilers right now for Half Life Alyx because I think it's crucial to talking about why this game is important. Because beyond what I've said about how this game innovates and I think makes VR a legitimate genre of games and makes them not just arcade experiences but something that can be a linear storytelling experience, I think that's worth a lot. But what I think is more important is that Half-Life Alyx takes one of the most important franchises in gaming, my personal favorite franchise in gaming, and a franchise that was stuck in limbo for 13 years and makes it a viable franchise to make games in again and fixes that story in a way that allows developers to do something with it. Because at the end of Half-Life 2 episode 2, it's the infamous cliffhanger. You know, Eli dies. They're saying, let's go get the Borealis. All that happens. Cuts to credits. You hear Alex crying. And then we never see what happens for 13 years. And then what Half-Life Alyx does is it's a prequel, but at the end, it addresses that ending. You're saving, or you go into the vault with a super weapon. You learn that super weapon is Gordon Freeman, and then you go, that's weird. And then eventually you go in and realize it's not Gordon Freeman, it's G-Man. And then you talk to him, he does his twirls his fucking mustache and does his shit, and then goes like, "Thanks for freeing me. You did cool, and I'm gonna give you basically like grant you a wish, like a genie. Um, he's like, I'll let you nudge something in the timeline, and then she's like, I want to get the Combine off Earth. He's like, no, I can't do that. That's too big. And then he's like, what if I give you something that you don't even know that you want? And then shows you in full stunning HD in VR that scene of Eli dying again, which is a scene that to me is so important and like immediately crying. I'm immediately crying as soon as I see this because like I did not think I would see this again. It's so powerful to me, both on like a narrative perspective and also just like holy shit, this is actually happening. And he goes like, you can stop this, and gives you the power to save Eli, and you do it, and it's the sort of thing where it takes this seminal scene and then says, actually, we're gonna change that, which is both fucking brave and so impressive that they did that without me rolling my eyes and going like, oh my god, are you serious? But what that does is they've sort of forged their own timeline. They forged their own path that they can go, where before, if someone tried to make Half-Life 3, it would be different writers, different developers, a whole different team. They would basically be making someone else's game, you know? And that's not really fair to them and would probably result in a worse product. But they've managed to make the series their own in a way that really, really works, I think. And then after that, like, it's the sort of thing where you go back, Alex has sort of been like zapped away from space time after doing that, and then there's Eli, and you're Gordon again. You're in Gordon's suit, and Eli's like, all right, Alex is missing, we need to go find her, and then hands you the crowbar, and you grab the fucking crowbar, and it makes the Half-Life sound. And then like I just sat on my floor and thought for so long, like, this changes everything. And the fact that this franchise can live again just means so much to me. And that said, like The Last of Us 2, in terms of a game, not just like a really, really personal and biased experience to me specifically, I would argue probably should be our game of the year. But Half-Life Alyx, in terms of what it accomplishes and what that story does, and that's completely ignoring like the Jeff chapter, which is one, in my opinion, one of the best designed levels I've ever played, and like the level design and the combat, which while simple, I think is so effective and so fun. And even outside of that, the modding community, like Source Filmmaker 2, which has allowed so many weird things to happen, and like all these things. Now, like, on essentially Gary's Mod 2 is being developed, and I can't wait for that because,
Oh,
like,
that's
it's
cool.
awesome. It's doing what Half-Life 2 did again, where it's allowing this new generation of creativity, and just like there's so much that speaks to me on a personal level about this game that will make it the top of my list. Like I said when it came out, there's like nothing can top this, no matter what it is, no matter how good it is. Like, this is Half-Life Alyx, and nothing will really be able to top that. Um, but yeah, like, you can make your argument about The Last of Us 2 if you would like, and I
Yeah,
will
and I
probably
again,
agree.
I'll make my argument, but I fully understand. Like, I know your perspective on it. I know you love The Last of Us Part Two as well, and that you just really want to talk about Half-Life Alyx and give it a
Yeah,
shot right
yeah.
here, right? Like, I am putting on the brass knuckles though, and saying, yeah, that's all cool and stuff, but without just telling me the story, telling me spoilers, I like, how is that gonna make it the game of the year? You know, the game that
Mhm.
uh I mean, all I can really say about that one, as someone who hasn't played, is like, oh, the tech is interesting, that's why I would want to try it out. But
Mhm.
I do not hear people talking about it. I do not hear people talking about it anymore. At least
Mhm.
not as much as I would have hoped. um
Mhm.
then to get on the side of The Last of Us Part 2, a lot of things for me push this to be the game of the year. For me, game of the year is something that pushes the games industry. Half-Life Alyx does do that in terms of tech and what you can do in VR and stuff like that. That's there's a lot there. The Last of Us Part 2 does a lot with facial animation, does a lot with audio design, does a lot with accessibility, does a lot with difficulty modes. I know that could be accessibility as well, but I guess I'm more talking like for
Mhm.
disabled, you know, different disabilities and stuff like that, right? But then
Mhm.
you go to like just purely on difficulty. They added in the grounded difficulty that I've been playing lately, and just the fact that you
Oh
can,
yeah.
the certain settings that they like lock and turn off that you can't turn it back on, but then they still give you some flexibility. Like the fact
Mhm.
that you can go grounded and it's like insanely hard, but then you go to accessibility mode as well, and you can still turn off certain AI tendencies, like,
Mhm.
oh, they're not going to flank you still. It's like, oh, but I'm still playing on this really hard difficulty, but enemies aren't going to
That's
flank you now, or
interesting.
certain, easier to aim still, or whatever. The fact that they have so many interchangeable settings and just that, I think, is going to push the games industry forward, and this should be a standard. This should be something that most games have, if not all of them, right? When it comes to storytelling, when it comes to gameplay, I actually found the upgrades really cool. I found that being able to see Ellie attaching them herself instead of it just being a
Mhm.
thing that goes, yep, got the scope, I got my extra magazine, like, yep, and it's come out of your menu and your character's just holding it. Like, where did that stuff come
Mhm.
from? I just loved that
Yeah.
interactive, the way everything was, like, you were doing it, you were there, you're along for the ride, and you're in the game. Not every game is like that, so I understand, like, that's not, I'm gonna it's not gonna relate to everything. Like, you can't have Katana Zero
Mhm.
doing that, but but
Yeah, yeah.
but you know what I'm saying. Like, when I'm talking about games and what, like, the limits are for what you expect out of a video game, this pushed what my limits, or what my expectations were for a top level video game. It really pushed it for
Mhm.
me, and I think that it pushed it for a lot of people. And whether people liked the game or not, or didn't, or liked the where the story was going or didn't, the fact is, I think even without the controversy, I think this game would have been talked about just as much.
Mhm.
I think it just would have been more positive. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
I agree. Um, yeah, no, I am all for The Last of Us Part Two being a game of the year, and everything you said rings true. Like, even apart from the story, yeah. I mean, one thing I feel like people don't talk about enough is the gameplay in this game is really fun.
yeah, it
Like,
is.
the stealth in this game is really, really good. Like, the thing that gets me about the stealth in the game is the fact that when you go around a corner and enemies stop seeing you and they don't have fucking X-ray vision. Like, in so many stealth games, like when I was playing Cyberpunk after playing this, they kept feeling weird to me, where like I'd break their line of sight, but they still, like, every enemy in the area knew exactly where I was down to the
Well,
millimeter,
there is some, like, that makes sense though with the hacking stuff. Oh, I
It
can see
does,
through.
but it still,
I
like,
know what
just
you mean. I
feels
know what
kind
you
of
mean.
goofy, and like in
Yeah.
other games, like, it just kind of almost like made that experience less good for me because
Hmm.
it feels so natural, like dipping in and out of stealth, where then they're searching for you, and then you hit a guy, like, because you go in out of like the alert state, and it's so much fun, and like the
Oh,
shooting for what it is, like, is loose and weird and janky, but at a very intentional, like, it serves such a purpose, and it's very intentional. Like, it's supposed to be loose, it's supposed to be weird and floaty, because it's like it makes you miss shots
it's more
in a way that
realistic.
didn't necessarily feel, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's, yeah, totally.
You're not gonna
And
have your hand absolutely still pointing your gun at somebody
just
all the
like
time. Like,
perfectly, yeah.
you just did a front roll and then you stand up and you're like, I'm right back in that spot that I know it's gonna be in. Like, it's not like that in real
Mhm,
life. They're just
mhm,
trying to be more real. I
totally,
agree with you. I think the
yeah.
going into prone was such a great add to the game. Like,
Mhm,
just being
definitely.
able to, like, oh shoot, turn around, dive down, crawl under the truck or something like that. Just
Mhm.
so cool. Love it. Yeah, there's so many good parts. So are we in
Yeah,
agreement?
I think so. The next thing, if your list is outdated, then this probably isn't on there. But I think it's worth giving some honorable mentions for just games we played this year that we thought were great and we want to mention, but like aren't necessarily worthy of winning any of these awards.
Oh, I thought that's what our
Um,
top five was. That's
oh no, it's just like for me, my two honorable mentions I've listed down.
mm,
One is Post Void, which I've talked on here, and I think that game was just so weird and different
yeah.
and unlike anything else I've played that it is totally worth an honorable mention. And again, it's like $2, so cheap. Go play it. Support indie devs. Another is Yakuza 7, which I think for what it is really flew under the radar in a way that's a
Yeah.
little bit disappointing to me, because it is fucking good. Like, the only reason I think it's not nominated for some of these categories is, like, best story. By the time I finish it, I could see it maybe not winning over The Last of Us 2, but having a solid shot. And yeah, it's incredible. I think it does so many things with its themes and even its gameplay. Like now that I'm getting deeper into it, it's really really fun. And at the end of the day, it is like a Yakuza game, but I think it's so different from previous Yakuza games and does so many things. It's just nice, and it's a
Hmm.
really pleasant game. Like it's a game about solving problems through the power of friendship sometimes, and it's cheesy, but it's also like really sincere and just nice and pleasant to play.
Yeah.
And I think I wish more people were talking about it. Um, Another one that I didn't really talk about on the show, but it's an itch game I played on stream a while ago, like an itch.io game called Discover My Body that I thought was really interesting,
Hmm.
where it's like another free like 15-minute horror game about like a scientist that or like a professor that's like allowing you to like research him as he gets like absorbed by some fungus or something, and it's really bizarre and really
Whoa.
creepy, but it's really really interesting, definitely worth a play.
Hmm.
um and the last one, I forget if this came out this year or not, which is exactly what I am looking up right now. But let's assume it did. World of Horror is a really, 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 really cool horror game. Also, it's kind of like D&D in style of gameplay, in that it's a lot of like rolling dice and upping your stats. But it's this cool, like really Lovecraftian or like Junji Ito inspired horror game where it's all sorts of like elder gods and weird psychological stuff is going down. But it's awesome. Also, definitely worth a check out. Yeah. Do you have anything you want to chat out from this year?
uh, just a couple. Um, I definitely like. I think Astro's Playroom has had a lot of spotlight, but I do think
Mm-hmm.
it's still like it needs to be said that game is fantastic. It's a
Mm-hmm.
really solid 3-4 hours, and Taylor loves it, and she's not someone who likes to play video games, so I think that's
Mm-hmm.
worth mentioning because she just likes having fun and likes being able to be instantly in the game, and that thing lets you just instantly travel between levels. She's tired of that world, okay, select the other level, warp in, warp out, or warp out, warp in, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
ready to go, right? And I think that one's worth mentioning as like, don't sleep on it. Seriously, if you get a PS5, play through it. Play through all the levels. You don't have to collect all the things, but it's actually worth playing through. Each world, every level, all adds something new and different to do with the controller, and it's super fun. My other one, I already had it on my top 5 list, but that's because I've only played like 11 games from 2020. um, and That's Wasteland 3. Still an incredible game. Like, I look forward to when I'm having that itch to go back and play it. Because
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm gonna have a blast playing through that game again, and it'll probably be even more stable than it was when I played it. It wasn't terrible, but I know it did crash a couple times, and yeah, that game is just really really solid. I was looking today, and let's see here real quick. Sorry, I did have it up, but yeah, Wasteland 3 on PC. It on Metacritic, it's at an 85, and to just like explain, or just to compare that, Cyberpunk on PC is at an 86,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I just thought was funny for Cyberpunk, but I like it's a solid game, and clearly a lot of people think so. And I wasn't someone who liked that kind of genre, or I didn't think I did, and now I'm way more open to it because of this game. And if you like Fallout
That's awesome.
and you like story, focused RPGs, I think you'd really like this game. Don't worry about what kind of genre it is.
So, given how much you liked it,
No,
do you think you would go back and play Wasteland 1 or 2? Because both
no.
of those aren't Game Pass. No? Okay, that's fair.
I did think about it, but just watched like a short bit of gameplay from both, and I think they are more different to the point where there's a lot of features added to 3 that I would just expect to be there that they won't have in 1 and 2, and it would actually feel
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
worse game. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd rather just replay 3.
It makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense, yeah. Awesome. Well, I
Yeah,
think
that's.
that's about it then.
Do you have anything you want to plug before we end the episode today?
I don't think so. I might soon. I will
Ooh,
say that I might have
classic.
something to plug soon.
Classic
Yeah,
Zig.
I feel like I say that a lot.
Yeah.
I've had some stuff I'm thinking about, some stuff I'm working on, some stuff I'm like I've been talking to people, I've been making connections, but yeah, we'll see.
Nice. Well, then I'll just say that I am still streaming Dead Space 2 on my Twitch channel, so you can check that out at Nicolobe. I'm at Nicolobe just about everywhere, and obviously you're on the channel, so you have all those links available in the description and all that stuff. You can check out Ziggy with all of the links in the description as well. I will be playing through Bloodborne next once I'm done with or not. I keep almost saying Dark Souls every single time. Dead Space 2. When I'm done with Dead Space 2, I'm going into Bloodborne because I really want to play that game. Like I'm really in the mood to play some Bloodborne and play it on the PS5. We'll see. It doesn't run much better. It just stays at a stable 30, which is nice. And the DLC has, in my opinion, some of the best boss music in all of the Souls games. Like there's 2 tracks
That's
in there
awesome.
that I really like. So I'm very excited to go back through those. And yeah, other than that, I'm just trying to, start this new year with a lot more content, trying to focus on being somewhat regular. I can't, it's so hard to have a schedule right now, but I'm trying to get to that point where I can be like reliably there for all of you at 2:30 on Tuesday or whatever it is, and whether it's a stream or a video that just comes out that day, try to have something available at least every second day. So yeah, with all that being said, thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Oh, and keep peeking that screen. Just
Yeah.
gotta need to say that now.
Keep screening that peak.